time for forgetting to do. So the record button has been hit. People are starting to come in to the presentation as we speak. And since this is being recorded and it's going to go out, all over the world, from time to time, I just want to, welcome everyone who's coming out here to hear this information and about the wonderful things that my guest has going on. And, prior to turning it over to him, I want to make sure I do him a good service and do, the organization service that actually brought us together. We both just returned from NOCO in in Colorado, Estes Park, Colorado. It's the largest hemp convention in North America, where once a year all the minds get together and talk about, things that are going on within the hemp space. And I absolutely love the event. But the one thing that I hate about it is people think I'm going to come to NOCO and that's how my NOCO is going to build my business. That is not true. That's bullshit. NOCO is not going to build your business. NOCO is just going to give you an environment to get in a room with a bunch of people and kind of figure out and learn who's who, hear about some interesting updates. And it's all about what you take away from NOCO and implement into your day-to-day business. That's what's going to determine the success, the next level that you hit in your business, because every level has a different devil, guys. That's just how it works. And I just so happened to meet a handsome devil when I was at NOCO by the name of Paul Benhaim. And man, I didn't know that Paul had such an amazing background prior to meeting him, because I had heard of him, but I didn't know. Paul has been pioneering in the hemp space since the 90s. He founded the UK hemp industry with the first commercial hemp products first commercial food products, and it has written 15 books on hemp. Chairman, founder of the Hemp Plastic, with a C on the end, not the S, the Hemp Plastic Company, Hemp Foods Australia, Elixinol and Elixinol Wellness. Paul now brings us the use of cannabis as a psychedelic. Paul's passion is ensuring hemp gets to the masses through his strong connection to the plant. And you just have to see and experience this for yourself. So, without further ado, I wanted to introduce Paul Benhaim to you guys. Paul, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, JJ. Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon to you as well, man. Thank you so much for coming out here. And like I said, I'm just kind of, moderating. People are gonna come in, as this thing goes on. But man, when I was at NOCO listening to you speak on stage and your experiences, I was kind of blown away. And I was like, man, I gotta find a way to connect with this guy and make sure the word gets out, about him within my network and what you do, So, I always start these things off and I ask everyone, man, how, like, what brought you to this plant initially? How'd that go?
Good question, JJ. I guess, yeah, like most people, I got to this plant when I was a youngster at school, and someone gave me a joint, and I smoked it and got high. But I had no idea where that would lead to in my case, and I ultimately followed my passion, traveled the world, particularly in Asia, where I sat in Northeast Thailand studying food. And I didn't know I was studying food at the time because I was sitting with in a tribal village where no one spoke my same language as myself. And
Uh-huh.
yet I could really connect. I felt so connected to these people without any language, without any words. And I had a number of months actually with these people where I observed their habits. And one of their habits was in what they ate and how they gathered their food. And it was like generally the women who gathered the food, the women who made the food, the men that ate the food, and the women that cleaned up after the food, which
Oh
was
God.
which is
This don't
slightly
sound good
different.
so far.
It doesn't sound good so far, no. But one thing that I did learn is that these people were the healthiest, most vibrant people that I had met on the planet, even though they were living in, I'm sorry to say, but shit, literally.
Yeah,
They were living in mess. And I came up from a middle class London, UK background where I was told to clean your hands before your meal. So I
right.
never understood that. So the more I looked into it, the more I came to the understanding that there was two major things that these people were doing. One is that they were being and living closer to nature than I had expected or understood. And
Mhm.
that was a big cause of them eating natural, unprocessed foods. And that led to ultimately my discovery and focus on food. The other, which I won't go into too much today, was how they lived as a community, how their village lived together, supporting each other as a group, and they naturally cared for each other. So, but it was the food that really intrigued me and actually led me to starting to study and understanding what in these natural foods was doing them so good. And ultimately, I learned a number of things, but the focus was for me essential fatty acids.
Mhm.
That were in non-processed foods. And at that time, it was really unknown. Essential fatty acids are only known by a few people in the health industry, particularly focused on fish oils, which were only just beginning.
Mhm.
And of course, nowadays, essential fats and fish oils are very well known, and all the other different sources of oils. And through those studies, I met one of the leaders in the hemp in the food industry called Dr. Udo Erasmus. And in his textbook, which was hundreds of pages long, which I loved and enjoyed, I was probably one of his biggest fans. He had one paragraph saying hemp is the ideal source of these essential fatty acids. So I found that really strange that this is the leading fats and oil specialist, and he focused, on the best source of essential fatty acids with one paragraph in a 300-page book. So I
Wow.
went to go and find him and say, hey, why? Why did you only give this subject one paragraph of your time? And his response was that hemp actually is related to the cannabis plant, and he didn't want to appear to be involved with something that had such a negative feedback. So I quizzed
Mhm.
him. I said, yeah, but is that true? Because factually and scientifically, it's extremely healthy. This seems to be what makes these traditional indigenous people healthy by eating the small amounts of essential fats in the unprocessed food as close to nature. And he said, yeah, that's all true. And what I learned later on is that he was coming out with a formulation of different products, which he was interested in commercially, which was one of my first lessons about there's always people always have their own interests and always behind, no matter how independent they may seem
Yeah.
financially. And I understand that because that's the world that we live in. But anyway, that was the beginning of my studies of foods. And then I went back to the history books. I actually went back to Europe and saying, who could I help and support in this industry? And I found that nobody was available to support because no one had been doing it. So then I went back to the history books going, who uses hemp foods? And I learned that Eastern European cultures, such as Poland and Hungary, had been using hemp as far back as history records went. So I thought,
Mhm.
great, I'm going to get on a plane and go to Hungary. So there was a hemp clothing company at the time that I found who was based in Hungary and offered me a translator to come and support me to find hemp seeds. So I went and sourced hemp seeds from a traditional farm that had been growing it for years, and I brought the first ton of hemp seeds over to the United Kingdom, where I landed and looked at this pallet of foods and going, wow, I've got a pallet of bird seed here. What the heck am I going to do with that? I need a whole pallet of this stuff. So I thought, well, how am I going to sell bird feed to people? And that was really challenging. So I thought, well, what do people really like? Well, people like chocolate, ice cream, and things like that. So I basically made I actually made a chocolate free, but a carob coated snack bar that tastes good. And I also decided not to focus on hemp being the predominant ingredient in it because I didn't know how to educate people at that time. And that those two ideas seem to have worked because that product, cut a long story short, become one of the most successful health food products in the United Kingdom, and we sold hundreds of millions of those bars around the world from something that
Wow.
was very hard to start with. And that created the industry in the UK and following up in many countries in Europe. So during those times, I kept going back to Asia, which was my inspiration for this place. And I'm getting around to the story of how this is
Yeah,
related
yeah,
to hemp plastics because
absolutely.
I love nature. I love walking in the mountains. I love just really connecting with the beauty and pristine things that we can see around the planet. And one of those places were the Himalayas. So one of my part of the places I was studying food and nutrition was the Himalayas, where most backpackers go with I don't know what in their backpack, but I basically took books, sat in the Himalayas, studied, read, taught some yoga, practiced meditation, and I was telling the locals and spending a lot of time in those days that the locals should not try and follow the Western way because they were like, how do we make money? How do we get out of here? I'm like, you have everything that you need here. So
Yeah.
And I was like, including this pristine, beautiful place. They said, no, no, we have rubbish too. I'm like, no, you don't. You have no idea how bad it is in the West. And they're like, no, no, we do. And I'm like, and we had a bit of an argument. I'm like, well, why are we disagreeing on this subject? So we looked deeper, and they ended up taking me over the mountain into a place where they threw their trash away from the people. So and what was worse was that it was upstream to the small villages. So that's where
Ah,
the pollution coming down and these plastics. And it was that moment I said, oh, if there's something I want to do in my life, from the successes I'm seeming to create from Hemp Foods, was to make a difference in the amount of plastics being used on this planet. So
mhm.
that was a dream, and I didn't really think it was a very practical dream because the petrochemical industry is one of the largest industries on the planet, along with pharmaceuticals and governments. And I was like, wow, I have no idea how I'm going to reach these people or make a difference. Until I was hiking again in the mountains, seems to be a theme of mine, with a friend in Northwest Wales in Snowdonia Mountains, who was part of what is a biocomposite unit. And he said, like, my boss basically is the head of this biocomposite unit, and we could maybe make you a sample of hemp plastics. And I'm like, wow, because again, as far as I could tell, and it's still true today, is that no one had ever made hemp plastics since Henry Ford,
Hmm.
except me. So I decided, hey, I'm going to do this. Why not? Again, I pioneered hemp foods. Why can't I pioneer the use of hemp as a form of in plastics? So that's what we did. And I used the money that I was making from hemp foods to fund some studies. I funded a study in Germany. I understood about the technical abilities of hemp and how it could be used as a plastic. Made sure that it was possible because I had no idea about the plastics industry at that time. And we created what's called the High Fly, which is one of the first, well, which was the first hemp plastic product since Henry Ford. And that basically, cut a long story short, has evolved over the years, where I've got involved with numerous technologies to produce hemp plastics, including 100% hemp plastic material that's as strong as steel. And I did a
Wow.
take on that. And instead of when, if you may have seen a picture or video of Henry Ford hitting a car with an axe and it
But
bouncing off,
yeah.
I was like, wow, that's so cool that you can have bumper cars basically and not have insurance, because if you hit it, it just bounces off. Use these strong plant-based materials. So instead, we created a material that did that. And but we didn't turn it into a car. We actually made didgeridoos from it, which is an Australian instrument. And I did
Mhm.
a video kind of take doing the opposite of Henry Ford, where I got a hemp didgeridoo and I went and whacked it on a car multiple times until the car broke, basically. I bent the car panel, smashed the glass. It's okay. It was in a scrap yard to show it. But it was a good experience for me to show that, yeah, you can make these materials super hard. But along that journey, which has been, decades long, I learned a number of lessons, not least of which is that you have to make things commercially viable. And certainly
Right.
to enter the plastics market, which is where I'm focused on now with the Hemp Plastic Company, we have to be cost competitive. And we have, as well as functional. And I'll talk about more of that if you're open and if you would like me to share a presentation on the Hemp Plastic Company.
Oh, absolutely, man. And while you're getting, your presentation, ready, like the first thing that comes to mind, I'm just honest, like this is just a conversation with JJ. This is how I roll, this is what I
Yep.
do, and it's
Yep.
like, okay. So, and I spent some time in England myself. So I kind of picked up on the accent. I'm like, okay, Paul's from England. I'm not sure
Mhm.
where he's living at and where this company is based now, but with everything that's going on with these trade wars and whatnot, and us
Mhm.
being in the US, like how will this affect, if someone wants to do business with the hemp plastic company and we're here, like how does all of that, how's it affect it?
Okay, well, I'll answer that in my personal perspective to start with, and in the presentation I'll answer it from a company perspective. From a personal perspective, yep, I was born in the UK. I spent time living around Europe, creating their industry there. I was
Hmm.
headhunted to come to Australia in 1999, and I moved to Australia then, and I've been based here ever since. But
Hmm.
during my time here, I've set companies up in Japan. And I literally created the hemp food industry and the CBD industry in Japan. I worked in Thailand for 20 years, working with the royal family. But in the US,
What?
yeah, I know I've loved working in Thailand. It's been a really fun place to get to know a culture that, I guess from a tourist perspective, looked very different to what I've learned is the actual culture. They're very conservative, very caring and community-oriented culture. So I really loved
Mhm.
being part of that culture there, and I'm still very connected. And as is the Hemp Plastic Company, as we'll come to that shortly.
Right.
But right now, and then during that time, I've been to the US many times and created Elixinol there, which was the first company to import CBD into the US. And I turned that into a $600 million company along the way in my journey, employing 160 people in Colorado,
That's crazy.
which was a wonderful experience. And this is how I fell in love with Colorado and why I'm still in touch in the US and why the Hemp Plastic Company is a Colorado-based LLC, or which is set up there. So we're 100% US company. We make our products in the US. We sell our products in the US. And I'll explain in the
Nice.
presentation how that's connected around the world. So
Absolutely.
if I can share my screen with you, hopefully you can see that. And
Yes, sir. I see
I,
it. Go for
I,
it, man.
I will progress from here. So basically, the Hemp Plastic Company is a company with a patented formula based
Hey, Paul.
on blending. Yes,
Hey, Paul, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you make your screen bigger by chance? Like, is there a way to maximize your screen,
that
or is
is
it
full screen for me.
that's
So
full fill? Okay, okay, no worries.
yeah. So I can maybe share this presentation after if people want to download it as well, but I'll just talk
Sure.
through it anyway. So you don't have to read all the writing on it. I'll go through the writing. And
Mhm.
as I said, this is just an overview that, we're a patented based company making hemp with plastics in the US. I'll start with the team on the right. The company is run by Glenn Kale, is supported by Greg Dean and Todd Rosin. They're both very technical people with 30 and 40 years of plastics industry expertise. Greg is
Mhm.
based in Michigan,
Mhm.
where our production is predominantly for hemp plastics. Todd is based in Bangkok and looks after all our APEC region, which is China, Korea, Japan, Singapore, and obviously Thailand. And I'm the founder and chairman at the moment. So the ultimately what we do is we make affordable, simple, marketable, and available in volume low carbon plastic products. We can make biodegradable, compostable, stronger, FDA grade. We can customize it in any way. Our model is basically B2B, where we sell plastic pellets, as I said, made in Michigan. We've sold way over 2 million pounds now. We had 700% growth last year, 800% bookings growth, and we are now
Holy.
selling tanker loads of hemp plastics based on our 33 global issue and pending patents. So that and again, this is the reason why I got involved with hemp. I don't know if you can see these pictures; they're too small, but that's basically
Oh, yeah, no, we're good.
garbage in the oceans that sadly still exist around the world and are improving. But we need to improve it even more because the global use of plastics continues to increase significantly. This chart is only to 2021, but continues to grow in our usage around the world, no matter how much we seem to be aware more of these environmental uses. So yeah, the company, the Hemp Plastics Company, was started in 2018 and is evolved to 2025 now, where we are ultimately growing in the industrial packaging and consumable markets and expanding into automotive sheet and other markets around the world. Summary being rapid and affordable products, plastic and carbon reduction, end of life options. It's a very simple technology. And what I mean by that is that we sell these custom pellets and they go in regular injection molding machines so they can be used anywhere in the world. We have FDA letters saying that they're suitable for food and cosmetics, and we think they're very attractive. So again, this is the actual product that we sell. These are hemp plastic beads. We sell predominantly 4 types, which is hemp polypropylene blend, hemp polyethylene, hemp PLA, hemp ABS. And that depends on what the use is and who would buy which particular product. But most of our customers are larger customers, and they will want custom polymer types, which we can adapt and create for certain people. So we configure them to be whether we want them more bendy, flexible, durable, whether we want to be outside and to inhibit the UV ultraviolet light. We can have them thick, thin, dense, or light, and we can have we can make them biodegradable or biocompostable should we choose, and it's more should our customer choose. So how do we produce it? Basically we use hemp and we mix it with the other ingredients, and we do that in Michigan, and we produce this pellet here. So it's a really simple process ultimately, but doing that in a lab scale and doing that in bulk is a very different thing. And we can now do that for 50 million pounds roughly, or 30 million pounds in this one facility, which is about 50 or 60 million dollars worth of plastics a year. And we are expanding that as we speak right now.
So awesome.
So yeah, commercial traction is growing, but it's still very small. These are the kind of truckloads that we ship in. This is a picture of part of our facility where we produce these pellets. And plastics are stored in these big tanks here. So the main verticals, which is a common question of where our plastics are used, and again, a reminder that we don't produce these products ourselves, our customers do. And we just sell those pellets, as I said. And we sell them into the consumer products and durables market, such as these coolers, these sod stakes, and these plastic trays. We can make architectural sheeting, which is plastic film and sheet market. We can produce packaging, and we can work in the automotive and industrial components market also. Here are some pictures of those kind of products and hemp packaging, for example. I mean, why wouldn't you want to package your cannabis product in cannabis? Kind of makes sense to me. And these jars, these are the recoil coolers that you can put your cups in the consumer goods section. And we're moving into the construction industry, and we can make cutlery absolutely as well. And I know a number of people are doing these things. I guess our major advantage, I believe, is scale and price, ultimately, and that's the difference. I think because of our patents, we can produce these cheaper than anybody in the world, and that's what the strength of all the IP and the many millions of dollars that we've spent in creating this IP and now looking after this IP around the world. For making micronized hemp field plastics is ultimately what we're doing. And we have an ongoing R&D department where we look to increase our patents as well, so that we fully secure this space, as we are the largest in the world today. So yeah, that's a summary basically of where we are. The world biocomposites market is about $120 billion, which is just a very small part of the plastics industry, but it is growing at a CAGR of 19%. Right now we're right in the beginning or / middle of that at the moment. So it's an exciting space, and most of the customers are interested in these materials because of this data that we had an independent life cycle analysis of to see how much CO2 emissions we're saving per ton of our material compared to regular incumbent materials. So if we make a hemp polypropylene, and even if that's just filled 25%, compared to regular polypropylene, we're actually saving 40% of CO2 from that one material, and which goes up to 65% when you just compare hemp PLA with PLA as well. So the environmental sustainable benefits of this product because of the hemp content is absolutely significant. And of course, we didn't really start off how I normally do, talking about all the other uses of hemp outside of plastics, but obviously fabrics, concrete, insulation, nutraceuticals, food, paper, composites, bedding, and chemicals all come from this amazing plant that supports the soil globally. So the fact that we can use the waste products from these other industries makes it not only a net zero industry, but allows us to upvalue these products into something, which is why we're an ideal partner for farmers and processors to use their either waste product or purposely grown products as well, so that we can create these benefits from hemp plastics. And the hemp industry in itself is growing, particularly within the US, which I love. So you mentioned earlier about you know, the I guess the tariff situation which we find ourselves in, which hopefully doesn't put this video on a timely issue, because who knows how long these will happen, whether they happen one more day or never again, or for the rest of our lives. But in any case, I prefer to have a grow local, use local philosophy. For me, working as local as possible is critical. So that's why we have been focused within the United States. And we've been focused, you know, as I said, our production is in Michigan, which is the automotive and industrial capital of the US. And that's where we are working with a number of different automotive companies and have produced a number of different parts. Sadly, I can't mention names of companies because of very strict NDAs with the automotives, but we have worked in some really fantastic ways.
Hey Paul, Paul, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to reiterate something to kind of help you out and help people out when they're viewing this thing in the future, because a lot of people are out there saying hemp is dying, the industry is dead, it's going away, they're killing it. No,
Mhm.
that is bullshit. That is not true. People are only looking at that and they're only speaking at it from the cannabinoid side of, what's occurring with things that are, that are may or may not be considered hemp, in the future. And there is no way with all the, like and I'm not changing subjects, with hempcrete that this industry is going with what you're doing with automotive parts. They're not just going to stop doing that. There are going to be some modifications and some changes. So didn't mean to interrupt you too much, Paul, but I'm just trying to keep things in perspective for those that are viewing this with the mindset of, oh, this is going to be going away. No, sorry, but please continue. This is
Yeah,
wonderful.
well, sure. Well, I mean, all these industries that we're talking about using hemp in exist today, and all we're doing is producing and offering a more sustainable solution to them. So yeah, you're correct. It's not going away, and quite the opposite. And as you know, I've been in this industry for nearly 30 years, and I've watched things come and go. But in terms of industrial hemp, it's grown. It's been a slow growth, to be honest. It has been.
Right.
And that's why I've really focused on one particular industry, and that's the plastics industry. But for the plastics industry to work, I need other industries to work. So I need the building industry to work so that there's waste materials. I need the textile industry to work so there's waste materials. I need the farming and primary processing and decortication technologies to work efficiently. And they do in Europe in a couple of places. And in America, only now am I seeing that happen. And there's only a few groups, and it's only a handful of groups, but those handful of groups are very capable of producing very significant quantities. And they've invested many tens of millions of dollars in this, in each of them today. And they are able to supply us with products and raw materials where we can sell hundreds of millions of dollars worth of materials today. So yeah, I mean, it's still only hundreds of millions, but it is, we absolutely see a very easy path. I say easy, okay, that's a wrong word. I'll rephrase that. We'll say a very realizable path to be a multi-billion-dollar company and a multi-billion-dollar revenue industry, just ourselves, let alone all of the support industries around us. So is that big in American style? Maybe it's not humongous yet, but it's certainly growing from where it has been and over all of these years. So I do feel very excited about the changes happening. And in terms of your comment in relation to hemp and cannabinoids, I will point out that from a global perspective, and having worked I've worked in hemp in 40 countries in the world.
Wow.
Been to many more than that. But from a global perspective, it is America predominantly that has a perspective that hemp contains ingredients that are psychoactive, or in the way they are being used in the US. So most of the rest of the world doesn't see it that way, and I'm not going to argue one way or another, but I will say that it has been successful business for people within the US, which has created income, which has supported the hemp industry moving forward. So from that perspective, it's excellent for the industrial hemp industry. And the industrial hemp industry is what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking
Absolutely.
about cannabinoids today. And yep, I can give you a presentation with hundreds of slides for hours long about cannabinoids. But in terms of whether that is going to be a future or that's slowed down, I think that's what you're talking about.
Hmm.
When you're talking about the hemp industry slowing down, well, it makes sense it's slowing down because the legislation is legislators are wondering whether it's okay to sell intoxicating products in petrol stations within the US to minors, which again shouldn't be happening, but is happening ultimately. And that's again, I won't get into that, but I'm saying that
Right,
is a
right.
questionable and why people are, I guess, being more cautious. In terms of using hemp, though, in an automotive product, in a construction product, or in a consumable products market, I don't see that going away. That's not going to change. There's no legislators going to say, hey, this is no good. It's no good for your farmers. It's no good for your primary processes. It's no good for your industry. Of course, it's good for all of those parts of the stream. So everyone is happy with a growth of industrial hemp. And in fact, the USDA has been very actively supporting this industry, not just in America, but also in where I was going with answering your question earlier about, where are we based? Yes, we're based in the US. Yes, we're focused fully in the US, but the USDA is supporting us to go out around the world, particularly in Asia and Africa right now, to assess the markets over there to see if there is some way we can get involved with what they see and what we also see, and we agree, is the future of this industry because the Asian and African markets are growing more rapidly than anywhere else on the planet right now. And they have a
Mhm.
lot more people than America or anywhere else on the planet together. So how can we be part of that future growth? And one of our business models is that we are looking to license our IP, patents, know-how, technology of the entire stream for the Hemp Plastic Company, as an example. And there are other industries doing this in Africa and Asia right now, and we're doing it side by side together because, as I said, working together works in this way.
Right, right.
And we want to take our technology to a partner in Africa. And what we don't want to do is like say, hey, we don't want to be a big we have chosen not to become a model where we go to Africa and say, we're a big company in Africa, we're going to make this in Africa and make money from Africa. What we want to do is go to Africa and say, hey, we have this technology. Would you like to be our partners? Would you like to own the company predominantly, run the company, make all the decisions, and leverage the decades and millions of dollars that we've spent so that you can go straight into commercialization and skip all of the steps that we've had to learn in America and around the world? And that is where everyone, it seems to make sense. And it's a win-win. And then instead of, them doing it from scratch, they get to save all that. And instead of us thinking that we can learn and understand and own the companies and countries around the world, we can actually be partners with them. And we can take a
Absolutely.
license fee, which is our payback for all of the millions of dollars and investment that we spent in our R&D. They get to kickstart the industry. And globally, we may become eventually 1% of the plastics market, which will be a multi-billion-dollar business at that stage already. Many multiple billion-dollar business at that stage. So again, there is such a long way to go. There is so much potential here, and it is all about realizing it. So it's not just about talking about it. I like to talk about it because it is an exciting time, and I'm happy to inspire others. I'm happy that you were inspired, and the crew at NOCO were very excited to hear the
Oh, yeah.
updates of how we have progressed from becoming an R&D company to, we're at the beginning of a commerciality. We've just become a profitable company after all of these years of investments. And now, we hope to show a very significant growth curve moving forward.
Man, that is so, awesome and so amazing. And what I'm hearing, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Like I said, I'm just JJ, it is what it is. But I'm seeing a huge potential for people who, let's just say, have access to resources and they're trying to find things to do with
Mm,
these resources to continue to make themselves more profitable than they
mm,
already are. I mean, I
mm,
just see, a lot of opportunities, and I don't want you to say it because I don't want you to get in trouble. Let me get in trouble. I just see phenomenal opportunities in people figuring out ways to partner and work with you in that regard. to grow this thing for the greater good, for everyone. And man, did you have more slides that you wanted to show, Paul? I know we kind of.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have many slides I can show, but I don't think I need to share so many more. I mean, I can share you pictures of our production. I can show you pictures of where we've been around the world. In Africa, I can show you a whole bunch more products that our customers have made. But again, ultimately, this is still a startup. Yeah, great. We're doing millions of dollars worth of trade, but it's very much a startup, early stage startup, in my opinion. Really, Series A is where we're up to in our level. We are looking for partners who want to see this grow. And again, globally, most people are quite conservative, and this is kind of why I love America, because America is really up for growth and loves to see growth. And I'm like,
Right.
great, the potential, we have a very realistic potential, and we have all of the pieces of the puzzle, except maybe enough resources to support a growing team right now. So we want to grow our team, particularly in literally just outreach. Some call it
Yeah.
sales, but for us, it's just like we just got to communicate what we have available, and that we can do it today, and we can do it in a way that's efficient. We can do it in a way that's economic. We can do it in a way that the materials work. We can do it in a way where we don't need anyone to change anything except their supplier, basically, to hemp plastics from regular plastics. So you
Right.
can use the same machines, and we are there. We have the technical capabilities to support that. We have the technical capabilities to adapt those materials to produce anything. So, and even though I would like to say, because I'm not sure how many people are going to be listening to this video, but we can't take inquiries that can you make this product or can you make that product. We don't make products. So if you want to make a product, go find an injection molder who makes that product, or that you will buy a mold for and bring to the injection molder, and they're willing to make that product. And
Yep.
that injection molder should come to us, or then you can come to us and say, hey, can you provide a material to these specifications? And then we're very happy to support people in terms of taking product. And it is that relatively simple in that regards, but we also find normally there's back and forth in the development, where we'll supply material for a larger company, and they'll go, great, but our marketing team wants it this color. We're like, great, no, here, have it in this color then. And then we'll come back and they go, yeah, but can you make it a little more bendy? I'm like, great, we can do that, sure. It's like, actually, they've decided they don't want it biodegradable anymore. They want it to last a long time and be more CO2. We can do that too. And that process can take a year or two, but when a decision is made, and like our existing customers, I mean, there's no work for us to do. When they want an order, we pretty much press a button, we get supply and goes through a big machine, we ship out a few tanker loads, truck loads, maybe train loads very shortly. We're moving into at the moment. And it like, sorry to say in an American way, but it's printing money. It literally is. And that's why these petrochemical corporations have been so comfortable and smug behind their desks for so long, because, nothing has competed with fossil fuels, because for them, fossil fuels are literally something free that they just have to take out of the ground.
Right.
I don't see them as free. I see them as the world's resources, and I think that there should be a global tax on those things. If you look at it from that perspective, it's like we all own these resources, as in all the people, and that there should be benefit to everybody. And the benefit that they see is, well, we get to make all of our products from plastics, and so everything is made from plastics around us. So I'm just asking us to be more conscious and saying, well, look, this is not sustainable. We, as a growing planet, as a growing species, that we have to be more aware of the effects that we're putting onto this earth. And maybe, some administrations around the world may not agree with that perspective. So it is up to industry ultimately to make those choices. And the industry will make those choices generally up to people. So, when you have a choice to go and buy a plastic water bottle that you use once, or eco-friendly hemp plastic water bottle that you can use multiple times. It's maybe a bad example because we don't make water bottles, but that you understand the concept is like,
Yeah.
if we as consumers go and make that choice to be more conscious about how we use products and where they go after their life cycle, how they got to the shelf where you buy them from, and where they go after you finish using them. when we become more aware of those things, I think we'll all make the right choice. I think none of us want to see more of a mess in the world. None of us want to see more pollution on this planet. No one wants to see more, I guess, climate issues on this planet, whether you believe they're there or not. None of us want more challenges for the human race. I think we all want an easier, safer life that's more abundant and healthy for us all to live in.
Absolutely. And I think, and by the way, the guests that are listening right now, if they unmute and they have questions, please, unmute, ask your questions. I mean, this is meant to be interactive. I mean, me and Paul just have a natural good flow because, we met at NOCO for the first time and we were all over the place. We didn't have a chance to really talk too much individually. So this is our individual time to kind of, talk too. But I look at what you do and, the first person that comes to mind is Greg Wilson, with the Hemp Wood Company, because like, that dude lived in China for 15 years doing bamboo flooring, right? And he took all of his information, expertise, bought a model here to the United States where they're making blocks at the Hemp Wood Company, right? They make blocks. That's what they do. They make blocks of wood and they take the wood and they'll slice it and they'll do flooring. But that's it. Like they don't do bowls, they're not doing duck collars, they're not doing, all of these other things. Like there was so much time, energy, and effort and R&D went into just figuring that out.
Mhm.
It's just unreal. And then for people to call and say, hey, I mean, those blocks are cool, but can you make us some spoons? It's like, go find your damn a wood fiddler, to do that, So I get where you're coming from. And I totally, just in awe of what you've done and your ability to, because persistence is the only thing that breaks down resistance. And
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
end of the day, when it's all said and done, you are one persistent SOB. And I see where Mr. David Link has not only unmuted himself, but he's put his camera up as well. So I'm assuming David has a question. So David, please go for it.
Um, I'm curious. Hi, Paul. And I briefly met you. I just had truncated time. I would have loved to have stayed all the days up there in Estes Park. Um, can you tell me a bit more about the processing of the stock? Do you take all the fiber in the herd and just, or do you have to separate, decorticate? Tell me a little more what you can tell me about that.
Sure, David, thanks for the question. It's a good question. Um, Look, ultimately, as you heard earlier, that I've been doing this for quite a few years, and this is for me the ultimate iteration of everything that I've learned over my entire career, and this is what I'm very confident is the commercial solution. And part of the reason I believe that is because of the answer to this question, is because I believe that if we grow hemp just for plastics, that is not the most sustainable thing that we can do. Is it viable? Possibly for some uses, but that's the whole benefit of hemp, that it has all these different uses. So what we identified very early on in this business, and this is why I had a co-founder in this particular business, is because he found ways where we could upvalue the waste streams from either decortication, either from things like hemp wood production, either from the hemp building industries that are making the herd that are already decorticating as well, or even from the food industry and even from the cannabinoid industry. Now, we have created hemp plastics from all of those streams. So from the waste of the hemp seeds, from the waste of the hemp stalk, from the hemp stalk itself, from the fiber, from the herd, we have done it all in R&D, and that's why we've spent a while before we chose to become commercial. And it was a decision we had to make very early on. Is like, do we just want to make a product, go out and sell a hemp plastic product, whether that be a hemp plastic cup or cutlery, which some companies are doing, or do we want to actually put our time and effort into really understanding the technology, working out what is the most efficient, then patenting that, so we have the super strong foundation for growth. So we have that today. Predominantly, I'll say we use the herd. The hemp herd is probably what we use the most at the moment, in a micronized form. Yeah, we can use other parts of the plant also.
Okay, interesting. And the other question, I was glad to hear your pitch about being cost effective with the direction of the current drill baby drill sort of DC regime, and what looks to be lowering costs of petroleum, how much does that impact your projections if you're dealing with a cheaper alternative?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, ultimately we're producing as cheap as we can do today at the scale that we're producing at today for hemp plastics. In terms of petrochemical production, I can't predict. I mean, I don't think anyone can predict the future of where we're going with the cost of petroleum or based plastics, let alone with hemp. Either are quite challenging to know the future because it seems to be changing regularly in terms of its direction. What I understand is that we are cost comparable for some particular uses, and those uses are many millions of dollars of an industry there available to us. So we have capacity to grow significantly no matter what happens in those bigger macro environments. Because we're not talking about trillion-dollar business right now. Once we get into the billions of dollars of revenue, then that is a discussion where we look at the macro environment a lot more. Right now, we're a niche of a niche, just to be clear. And we can be in the hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, making good profit, being a niche of a niche. So I'm trying to give you some color around why I'm not going to go deep into the answer of that question today because it's not actually relevant for where we are. Am I aware of it? Yes. Do I watch it? Absolutely. But it doesn't make much of a difference until we're in the hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. Then we'll look at it for the next stage. But again, it comes down to, if you believe that there's no need for sustainable products on this planet, then probably hemp plastics are not for you, and that's okay. I don't think everyone needs to. We don't need to persuade everyone. I'm not persuading anyone, in fact. I believe that there's already a demand enough for some sustainable products, and that's what we do. That's what we excel in. And there are some brands that really care. And we are finding that there are even some people from the petrochemical industry who are our partners now that care. And they go, look, we've been doing this all our lives, our career. We inherited this from our family. And we realize that this is probably not the best thing for the planet, even though the administration may say, drill, baby, drill, as you say. This is maybe not what we believe in. And we only need a few people to actually care. One good customer for us is $10 million revenue a year. I mean, how many of those do we need to make a significant business? Not that many people. And it's not like, okay, well, I just want 10 customers so I can be $100 million business. It's like, the point is more like I only need 10 customers. I'm a $100 million business with the resources and profit that we'll be making from that to grow to $1 billion is not that hard. And now I've traveled the world seeing the existing petrochemical businesses and how they run. The OPEX for this business is ridiculously low. I mean, I've never seen any business personally, and I've been in business only 30 years, so I don't know everything, but it's one of the most lowest OPEX businesses I've ever seen for the ROI that you get. So it's a very interesting space. I'm very confident that we have the ability to grow no matter what happens around us on a political level, unless they make it illegal, of course, but I don't think they're ever going to make hemp in the form that's non-psychoactive illegal. I don't think there's any question about that anywhere in the world. I mean, they're just new countries are legalizing it every week. There was a new country last week in Asia that just legalized hemp again. So everyone wants to get involved. I'm being asked by governments to do studies to create industries more around the world that involves plastics, decortication, farming, building, foods, and the like. So I know that this industry is growing. I know that we offer a great option to those other industries and solutions that can support others. And I also know that to do it cost effectively, there are some really basic things that you need to know is like when there's a waste stream from an industry, that is cost effective to use that waste stream. So we'll always go for the cheapest raw materials first. Why wouldn't we? Yeah, we can we get technically better if we grow specific materials for it? Yes, we can, but the price will go up that much. So you know, there's always a balance. Life is a balance, and generally I find that balance is around being cost effective in our modern world. So that's been our focus from the very beginning, is how to do this in the most cost effective way possible, to use plants as a source of raw materials. And we are being supported by experts, not only in the field of plant-based plastics, but experts in the field of plastics, full stop. And that has kept me going for so many years, because again, just to be clear, I've been losing money, investing money is the way I see it, for many years to get this technology to a grade where I'm very confident to go commercial. We've done that now. We're past that stage. We are profitable, as I said. But to get there, I needed support from people in the plastics industry telling me that I'm not crazy, and that, yeah, this makes complete sense. And that these are people who've studied all types of plastics, new plastics that have come on the market, new environmentally friendly, new biodegradable ones. And they say hemp makes more sense than most of them, predominantly because it has so many different uses. And this is actually a technology that fits in with that perfectly.
Yep.
Well, I was just going to say, I was on a call with a materials focused venture capital firm, and I have 4 hemp clients that I've worked with, or I'm working with. And this is Bass Fiber Tech, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And we had a great presentation and the whole thing. But he said, if there's any hint that customers are going to be asked to pay a premium for something green, it's sort of, at least in the circles of VC he runs in, that was like, basically he turned down the deal at the end of the call. So that's the reason I asked the question, Paul.
Yeah, and there are definitely people like that, and I get that, and you know, ultimately we move on from people like that, because you know, you sometimes, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I'll pay a premium for the food I eat because it's better quality for me, and maybe I care about where it come from as well. I don't mind paying a little extra for that. So, and I know there's some people who just want to eat the cheapest hamburgers possible, even on their private plane, but for whatever reason that they have, and that's up to them. But I'm one of those that don't mind paying a little bit extra. I don't want to pay treble the price. I don't want to pay double the price even. But I don't mind paying a small percentage premium for a product that offers me health and sustainability, and not just for me, but for the planet and the community that I live around. So
absolutely. And before, you know, I think we have another question, but before we do, I got 2 words: colostomy bag. All right. The better you treat your body, the less likely your chances of having to get a damn colostomy bag and drag it around to empty your poop later on in life. So yeah, you have no problem with paying that premium now to make sure you don't have to deal with a colostomy bag later on in life, you know? So
I love that you feel like that, JJ, and maybe I do too. But again, but I want to respect David's question because it's very real, and I've come across that before. And my job is not to persuade those people. I'm not here to sell that this is something that people need to change their mind, need to pay an extra because they need to feel comfortable about that. It's like, I'm only interested in the people that want to do that, and they do exist, and we don't need many of them. To be clear, we only need 1 or 2. And if we have to go through, if I have to get 20 no's to get that 1 yes, that's great. Thank you to the other 19 people who said no to get me to that one person that said, yeah, I care. I give a shit. Literally.
Yep.
So.
And I think I see Jill has come on screen, and I think Jill might have a question. Jill, you want to unmute your speaker and go for it?
I actually had the same question as David, so
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, which part of the plant? I didn't see a chat window, and I was just like taking care of some things here, but yeah, that was my big question. And then too, as you guys were talking, I was thinking, you know, yeah, those customers just aren't the right those aren't the right customers, because this, you know, this green space, you have to have a lens of more than just cost. And I mean, that's true in so many places in life, like you said already. So it's all been said.
And the whole basis of the Whole Foods channel was on the premise that cultural creatives would pay a premium. The whole foundation of the thesis. So, so I anyway, I appreciate it very much.
You know,
Thank you.
I've done a lot of things in life myself, and a lot of people don't know. You know, I've taken a lot of no's in my life because I was Air Force for 21 years, but for 15 of that 21 years, I was involved in network marketing. You know, doing different things, and I actually hit the top level in one of those companies while I was stationed in Germany. You know, so it was a U.S. based company. I'm stationed in Germany, kind of hit the top level, you know, in it. And man, you know, one thing that I learned is when you believe in something and you believe it in your heart, like God puts it inside of you, you know, and it's like sometimes when God gives you a calling, it's not a conference call, you know, it's just for you. And sometimes you have to keep moving forward, you know, until you get the right people that come along in your life.
Mm.
You know, to make things happen. And when you run across those people and you can link arms with them and run, you're running with a good foundation, and it just grows from there as you continue to go in time. So,
Mm.
Paul, I'm linking arms, man. I'm running. Come on, let's go.
It's super impressive what you've done and how long you've been doing it.
Thank you, David. Thank you, JJ.
Yes, sir.
Joel, thanks for all being supportive of this time. And I think it's a really important point that you bring is working together with the right people. And ultimately, that's, you know, for me, when you resonate with a message and the right people, and there is a strong foundation of science and facts as well. I'm not trying to be too out there with my ideas because it's all based on science and fact and plants and nature. And then when based on that, working in the right culture to bring things forward
Right.
is critical for me because I've been in business long enough. I don't need to work anymore myself, but I love working because I love what I'm creating in this world. And I only want to do that with people that want to do that. So if someone doesn't want to do that for a reason, it's like, great, no problem. Carry on with what you're doing. I'm very happy here because I'm very sure that this is the right thing. And people, we are working with plenty of people, just to be clear. And we're finding many supporters all over the world. And we're talking to some of the biggest multinational corporations, and we're in discussions to do things that are way beyond the scale that I've even hinted at here that could mean, you know, so much for the industry. And some of the conversations we're having are related to, well, how big is the hemp industry globally? Because and ultimately there isn't enough supply for some of these one large multinational corporation fully taking on this kind of product. There isn't enough supply today. So how do we deal with that? Well, my comment to them is, well, if you start on a really small basis, like $100 million worth a year from just you, then we can have a few of you, which will invest in the industry to grow. I mean, but that's a very real situation that we find ourselves in on one hand, and at the other hand, we're really small and you know, there's it's growing pains, as simple as that. I've grown many businesses from startup, and I understand those growing pains. And ultimately, it's about being sustainable. Really, we would like, you know, a cornerstone group behind us saying, look, we get it, we understand where you're going, and we'll support you as long as you're not wasting money and throwing any money. And like, hey, we're a tiny team. We don't want to go and we're not buying company cars for this business. It's not about that. We have all the pieces. We just want to do a few little things to assist not only ourselves, but the actual industry in growing. Because I think when there is a big end user, and I really believe that we have the capacity to be the biggest in the world very quickly from where we are, then I know that I'm going to support all the other people in this industry. And I know many of those people, as you know, JJ, from in North America, but I also know them in Europe and Asia and Australia, and in Asia, in China and places as well. And I don't mind everybody benefiting from that. In fact, I'd be very happy to see everyone benefiting because for me, it's kind of like a family. It's been my career. I want to see the entire hemp industry grow. I can't help everyone, and I can't do everything, and I'm not doing every business. This is my focus. This is my big play, which has come out of my experience, and I'm very confident that this is the way forward. So I hope to support everybody in the industry, but again, it's a two-way street. So if people want to work together, then come find us. Our website, it's hempplastic.com. I think that's simple as that. And they can just connect with us there on LinkedIn or wherever else you want to find us. And yeah, look forward to ongoing conversations.
You know, and I just want to piggyback on what you said just a little bit, Paul. I think you know, a lot of people want to get together and talk, and I'm a firm believer in talk is cheap. We need action. We need people doing things, doing real things, closing real deals and whatnot, to keep the lights on and to keep the industry moving forward. So, I applaud those that want to get together and kind of talk strategy a little bit, but we need more action, than strategy where we're at right now in this space, because the more traction we make, the more sales that come about, that's the story. That's the one that they're looking at in DC, in these other areas. So, I understand people want to collaborate, but like, if it was me trying to get involved with you, I know the first thing I'm going to say is, hey, Paul, whatever links or whatever, one pagers you have about the Hemp Plastic Company, I personally have Facebook pages for 28 states. Get that one pager to me and I'll get it out to 28 states for you right away. Who knows what's going to come about that, but I know I'm going to get you traction. I'm going to get eyes on you so that it will hopefully, equate to sales and more product moving to keep this train, moving forward,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate that, JJ, in getting the message out there. And for me, getting the message out there is twofold. One, it's great. It's more about inspirational to show people that we are moving forward as an industry. And that is part of my job is to reach out to the industry. My team are the action people. They're the ones actually doing the business, making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And I mentioned before, and I'll just repeat it again, we actually don't need that many customers or that many partners to be a significant part of this industry, to grow this industry, which is, that's a big statement. We don't need that many things to happen, but we do need them still.
Right.
But, I don't want to talk to 1,000 people because I don't need to talk to 1,000 people. I only need to talk to a few people who are going to action, who want to be part of this success that there's no doubt that we're going to be. So it is really, again, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that we hear messages when we're meant to, we meet people when we're meant to, and
Yes.
when things are going to happen. And in the meantime, when I'm not, I just get on with chopping wood and carrying water. We're doing the job in the best way they can with the resources that we got. It's just every now and again I pick my head up and go, oh, it would be really helpful if we had this, or we had one more person just doing this part, and because the returns on that are really pretty crazily good, and that's exciting. So we want to make a profitable, sustainable business for ourselves, for our industry, and in fact for the whole of humanity, really. And I know it's a big vision, but I believe that we will care more moving forward about sustainability. Even if whether we move to the moon or not, we're going to need to know about sustainability and how to use these technologies. So yeah, I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I do believe it's going to be bright, and I do believe it's going to be green, and I do believe more good people will start working together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Paul, like I said, I can't thank you enough for making the trip to NoCo, connecting with those of us who, were wanting to know more. And my goal is to be there, again next year, encourage more people to come out, connect, and you got to go through a few duds to get to the studs. But my goal is to try to get as many of those people connected with you guys as possible, just to keep things going. So, I thank you, for coming out, for your time, energy, effort, expertise, the presentation. We've been out here for an hour and 5 minutes, which is, pretty impressive, but I wanted to make sure that no one had any more questions, prior to us wrapping up, for the evening. And Paul, I'll probably touch bases with you after. I got a couple of things that I want to give to you that may be of benefit, but I wanted to see if anyone else had anything that they wanted to say prior to us concluding.
Well, I work for a SEC licensed investment bank. I'm based in Colorado, but we're based in New York, and I have a pretty good handle on the pulse of the institutional investment market. So we need those markets to thaw. I'll just say I've been working on some lead investors for fiber and grain. It's a slog, but there are some pockets of interest. So I think, Paul, that's the number one objective you have is looking for capital.
Mhm. I appreciate, those words, David, and happy to stay in touch. Please, you and anybody else, please feel free to stay connected. I'm here. You can reach out.
Paul, do
privately.
you want them to
Sure.
connect with you via like an email address or anything, or you want them to just go to the website? What works best for you?
Generally just, generally via the website, because then
Okay.
depending on the query, I mean, if it's David's inquiry, it'll probably, David's based in Colorado, our company's in Colorado, so I'll probably just connect you directly with our CEO, for example, in that regards directly.
You had sent me an email, and I did speak with the CEO.
Okay, great. There you go.
Awesome.
Glenn, yeah?
Glenn, correct, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you sent me some information, and I've been trying to do something with it.
All right, appreciate
So
that.
I'll follow up with you too.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. Thanks for listening today and being present. Thank you again, JJ. Thank you for everyone else listening.
Hey, I made you a promise, man, and I kept my promise. So that's what I wanted to do.
Thanks, JJ, for doing that.
You are very welcome. Well, guys, thank you to all our guests who came out viewing this information. Thank you so much for putting the time aside for this. There will be a recording put up in the next 24 hours where you guys can take the recording yourself, go back and review it. You'll be able to share it. It'll be on YouTube, all that stuff. And, please continue to move on doing forward. Paul, once again, thank you, my friend. And hopefully I'll run into you somewhere here pretty soon.
Thank you. Be well.
Okay. All right. Y'all have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.